They say that the goal of business is to maximize shareholder value. In the typical land business, we are the shareholders. So the question is, should we seek the maximum price we can get when we go to sell a property? What about cash deals versus terms deals? What's the right mix? We will talk about these questions and more on today's edition of the Land.MBA podcast.
Welcome to the Land.MBA podcast, where we go deep into the business of land investing.
How's the weather out there in Connecticut today?
I tell you what, it is fabulous. Not a cloud in the sky, probably in the 40s, but not bad. I mean, just really crisp and nice. After all the grayness we've had, it's good. And so considering we're on day whatever of coronavirus quarantine, nice to be able to get outside a little bit.
Yesterday was gorgeous here. It's cloudy today, but it's not too cold. It's around 60, but we had just a beautiful day yesterday. And so I could see my backyard out the window from here, and all the I kind of got to my leaves late in the fall, and I got them all raked up into like multiple piles all over the backyard. And then it snowed on me the next day, and we just had enough melt to where they're all exposed. And so my cooped up daughter who wanted to get out in the sunshine, I was able to bribe her to go transport all those piles to one big pile in the corner of the yard. So when we get off the quarantine and can back up a pickup truck into the alley, we can get rid of all the leaves.
Well, sweet. So what have we got on plan for today's talk? Margin versus velocity, cash versus terms. I love this topic, and I love it because, the best way to get the results that we want out of our business is to set the right goals and to set the right plan in place to achieve it. Otherwise we're just the little rowboat on the ocean, letting the ocean take us wherever it wants to take us. I thought, why don't we start with margin versus velocity? What does that mean, Dave?
To me, it means, do you want to hold out for the maximum price? The buy low, sell high strategy, or do you want to turn your money quickly, the buy very low, resell low? So you come out on the market, you have enough margin, you're below everybody else, you sell it fast. And maybe you turn that money 3 or 4 times in a year versus once or twice. So there can be more work in velocity, and it depends on the size of the deals you're doing. And it really depends on your preferences. Do you want to, hold out for more money, or do you want to keep turning that money and more quickly actually build that war chest?
So more deals, of course, more deal flow, and deal flow is good. The more deals we have, the more money we make. And I think this is something that, isn't always completely obvious to people. I think, we're always taught from, anybody's to spend any time in business. You buy low, you sell high, and you try to get the maximum price that the market will bear. But I think the important point that you made is that there is a trade-off, certainly in real estate, between the maximum price that you can get and the time it takes to sell at that price.
Right.
And so time equals money. So if it takes longer, then that's your money maybe not working as hard for you as it can. And so to me, I'm all about velocity. I want to get these things out as quick as we can. And you also said, buy low, sell low. Well, low is a relative term too. I mean, how low?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it just me, or is it getting harder and harder to count on a job for our financial security? Who would have ever believed that we would go from the lowest unemployment in 50 years to 40 million people unemployed? Whether you have a great job and want to create a second income, or you're recently unemployed, you need to check out Land.MBA, your one-stop shop for land investors. Investing in vacant land is a proven business model that can help you build a reliable and scalable second income. Imagine a business where you love what you do,
There's no limit on how much money you can make. You can operate your business from anywhere in the world with an internet connection. And best of all, you can never be fired or downsized. If this sounds good to you, Land.MBA provides everything you need to get your business up and running and delivering income quickly. You get education, an end-to-end video course and optional coaching to help you get started faster and turn your energy into income. You get tools so you can automate and outsource the busy work and stay super organized. You get access to a thriving community of like-minded investors, which is a powerful way to share best practices and develop potential partnerships for growing your business. And finally, you get access to deal financing, so you never have to pass on a great investment opportunity due to limited funds. Our team has over a decade of real estate investing experience and has the knowledge and experience you need to help navigate any investing scenario. And with Land.MBA, we hold nothing back. Because there are no upsells, you get access to all of our combined knowledge right out of the gate. So don't wait to provide your family with financial freedom. Sign up today for Land.MBA's Soup to Nuts Land Investing video course. Just go to courses.land.mba and use coupon code FREEDOM to get 25% off. That's courses.land.mba and coupon code FREEDOM. And let us help you say goodbye to your JOB and hello to financial freedom.
And it's got to be, proportionate to how well you bought it. If you bought it really, really well, and you look at what your competition is out there, and sometimes it's just a no-brainer to say, well, why should I be greedy? I can be at 20% under these guys and still double my money. I don't have to triple it, but I could double it right now, really quickly. I had a property a couple years ago that I think I paid about 30 for it. And, holding out, I tried to hold out to get 60, 70 for it. And I ended up having it on the market for 9 months. And I eventually sold it, I think, for like 49. Well, if I'd have just not been greedy and dropped my price initially, now granted, sometimes it's hard to tell. Sometimes there's lack of data in a market, and but you can also drop your price more quickly and not keep hanging on, because that $30,000, I could have turned that, 2 or 3 times in a year had I been more aggressive on my pricing, and ended up actually making a lot more money at the end of the year.
Sure, absolutely. You got to get your money working for you. I put together a slide. What slide? Just one. And I thought I'd share it with you for those of you who are watching on YouTube. I'm going to share my screen here for just a sec. All right. Margin versus velocity, just so that we can sort of see put some numbers around this and really understand what it means. So let's just say we buy a property for $2,500. And we think that, we could sell it for $7,500, which is, perhaps on the high side, but we wanted to, get as much as we can for it. So we're making $5,000 margin on this deal. But let's just say it takes us 6 months to sell it. So we sell it in 6 months, we take it, we go buy another one for $2,500. Obviously, we could have bought 2 at this time, but I'm not doing that part of the math here. But let's just say we reinvested $2,500 of it, took the other $2,500 and put it into our personal account. And we bought another one. So we're basically getting 2 turns on our money in the year. And each time we sell, we're getting a $5,000 margin. So that's giving us a $10,000 annual profit. But now let's consider the same deal. But instead of getting $7,500, let's see what would happen if we got $6,000. Well, we're only making $3,500 margin now, $1,500 less. But maybe we can now, because of the lower price, we can sell it in 3 months rather than in 6. So we can turn that money over 4 times per year. Well, so 4 times 3,500 is $14,000. So by going with the lower price, but selling it faster and making sure that we can obviously continue to reinvest at a good rate, we could potentially increase our profits $4,000. That's a 40% increase over 10,000. So that's pretty substantial increase by selling low. And when you look at the math, it's pretty astounding.
Sure. and you might add a little bit of overhead in that because you're doing multiple deals. So, maybe you subtract a few $100 off that profit because you're going to have a little extra labor and marketing and sales, and maybe you have additional photographs and things like that to take. So maybe that 4,000 turns into 3,500, but still, and we're dealing with small numbers here, and just a couple of turns here. But if you scale that and you're doing multiple deals that way, and some of the deals are a little bit bigger, that can result in quite a significant difference in our overall return.
Yeah, and I got to say, emotionally, it's not all that easy to do, to go with the lower price. Because I don't know if you do this. I find myself doing this, and I always have to catch myself and reel myself back. So when I have an opportunity to buy a property, I've gone through the due diligence, and now when I'm in the due diligence process, I go into the detailed comp prices for that specific property. And I go look at it and I say, oh, wow, this property sold for, this much money. This property sold for that much money. And on a per acre basis, they tend to be selling at this price. And I multiply it times the acreage of my property. I'm like, so I do the math. And I'm like, all right, I can make this much in revenue. This is what it costs me. I'm going to make this much money on the property. I'm really excited. But that would be if I was selling, right in there with what everybody else was selling at and at those rates. But if I did that, it might take me longer. If I was willing to take a 10 or a 20% haircut on the final price, maybe I can turn that money over many more times per year. And so I always find that when I'm going through that process, I get all excited. I start getting dollar signs in my eyes, and I got to reel myself back in. Does that ever happen to you? Or is that just unique to me?
No, it is. And then sometimes, there's been many times where I've thrown a property out there and, man, I sold it so fast. I'm like, darn, did I sell that too cheap? I leave money on the table, but you just never know sometimes. And you just have to look back and go, in what other industry does over 100, 150, 200% look like a bad deal? You make 100% on your money and we're like, we're disappointed because we didn't triple our money. Have you ever, you priced an area based on our normal pricing techniques, you sent your mail, you got a deal, and then you go to market it and you find that there's one or two out there that are just lowballing it. And you're like, damn, I was targeting to position this property at $13,000 to $14,000, and that's under market by a couple thousand. And there's some dude out there at $10,000. Yeah. And you knew you could sell that all day long at 13, 14. So you paid $6 for it. Now you're like, I'm at $6 and I gotta freaking sell it at 10. What do you do in that situation?
I think that is a fabulous point. And it gets to how busy a county is, who's in the county. Is it, more just sort of your normal local buyers and sellers, or is it a lot of land investors of our type? The problem with selling lower is that it could become a race to the bottom.
Exactly.
Because once people start selling lower, then that changes the math, because that becomes the new normal if everybody matches, and then the next person has to come in lower and lower. Yep. But I've actually, so I don't like to go too low. I mean, I don't go 20% below the market. What I typically do is I get as many comps as I can. Now there's two comping processes. There's the comping process for a county when I do the pricing for my blind offers. And then there's when I'm looking at the specific property that I want to buy, where I'm going much deeper. When I'm in that second process, when I'm looking at the individual property, I get as many comps as I can. And then I typically go with the median price. And there's a difference between average and median. So for people who are not data scientists out there, so average is, I take all of the comps, I add up all of the prices, and then I divide by the number of comps, and that gives me the average selling price. The median is I just create a big list and I sort it by price. And then I find where the middle is, where half the properties are above and half the properties are below. And then that becomes the middle price of all that's out there. I prefer to use median over average. I think it gives me a more accurate read on the market. And then I will go in and say 10% less than that. 10% less than the median.
Sure.
But I don't want to go 20%. And I just don't want to completely undercut the market because it screws up the market. It screws up the whole market.
Yeah. And I'll give you an example. That was a county that I had worked a lot. And I kind of kept going back to the well. And, somebody beat me to it and they really drastically undercut everybody. Which, they're screwing up the market. So what I did on that one is I opted, and actually it was 2 properties, but I opted to wait because I knew he would sell it really fast at that price. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go for margin instead of velocity because I can't undercut that. I'm just going to wait till he sells it and then I'll put mine on the market. And lo and behold, I only had to wait 2 weeks. So it really didn't affect my velocity very much.
Have you ever had, I've had this situation, but have you ever had the situation where it just wasn't moving as fast as you wanted it to move? And rather than lowering the price, you raised the price and then it sold?
I haven't tried that.
It's happened to me a couple of times now. I mean, obviously it depends on the kind of property and the kind of customer you're going after. If you're going after your Walmart shopper with the 5 acres in the base of Costilla, that's probably not going to work. They're looking for deals all day long. But if you're selling the kind of properties where people are looking for quality and, they want what they want, there is a natural association between price and quality. So they think if you're lowering your price, there must be something wrong with the property. If you increase the price, but not crazy, but if you increase it somewhat, then, they're going to think, okay, that's still within the range of reason. And, this is a property I should look at. And if you think you can get a little above the marketplace, maybe what you're telling me is you think it's a better property than others.
Sure. And, it comes back to that segmentation we were talking about the other day and your customer avatar. If that's a different positioning, it may not just be price, but it also might be positioning because you're targeting that certain buyer avatar and not the cheap buyer, but the quality buyer.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's a great way to put it. Understanding the avatar. I'm not going for the Walmart shopper. I'm going for the Saks Fifth Avenue shopper. So I wouldn't try that technique necessarily on Craigslist or Facebook or eBay, but I would try it on land.com or land. Sure.
Right. Now, one thing I would, also come back on the, velocity versus margin as well. If you're doing that with really, really cheap properties, then it comes down to, is there enough juice to warrant the squeeze? Is there enough, you got additional effort, if you're doing these really, really cheap properties, I don't know. Sometimes I don't do the really, really cheap properties too much anymore. Every now and then I get one and I'll go ahead and, process it. But to me, that's more personal than it is. I mean, you're still going to have fantastic ROI. I mean, the lower price point you go, the better the ROI. We have some people talking about 6X and 1,000X, 1,000% margin. That happens on the very, very cheap stuff. The higher up you go, you have less ROI, but you have a nicer chunk for the work you put in. So that's kind of a balance on that. I prefer to kind of mix it up a little bit. I prefer to mix up my price points, and I do tend to want to flip it more quickly. But there's also nothing wrong if you have enough inventory to do some of that quick turn and to test the market on other properties. I recently had some properties where they were in an area where I didn't have a lot of data. So I've been testing the market a little bit to kind of see where, and then drop taking some of the similar properties and dropping the price on one and leaving it up on another, and kind of figuring out the market there.
Very smart. That's everything always. I love it. So margin versus velocity seems really relevant, particularly for cash deals. I mean, there's some application to it towards terms deals as well. But I think the other question that's related to it that we all face in this business is cash versus terms. What's the right mix? How much cash should we? How many cash deals should we be doing versus how many terms deals should we be doing? What's your thought on that?
So it really depends on your capital situation, and what your needs are. I mean, for me, so if you're just starting out, for me, when I started, I had a little bit of money, and my first goal was to build up enough terms deals to create enough cash flow to pay my business overhead. And so initially that was, okay, you start out with a certain amount of subscriptions and tools and things that you got to pay for on a monthly basis, like your data and whatnot. And I wanted to get those paid for first. And then it was, okay, then I wanted to throw marketing in there and be able to pay for at least my mailing, without having to, dip into the pocket to pay for mailing or rely on a cash deal to come in to pay for that. And then it was to pay for my VAs. So gradually built up that cash flow. But I wasn't doing 100% terms deals. Really, I had a plan, and it was, roughly 70-30. But it ended up close to 50-50 at that time. Sometimes you got to, you make a plan, and sometimes you got to take what the market gives you. But it really just depends on what your cash situation and what your goals are. Maybe you've got tons of cash and you just want to put that money to work at the sick returns that we make on seller finance deals. Then, you're going to have a high percentage of terms deals. But if you're like most people and you're lacking in capital, you're going to want to, flip for cash and build up that war chest as much as you can. But again, the market sometimes is going to dictate what you're able to do. Some properties won't be as easy to sell on terms. And if you're not, and it also depends on, sometimes you'll get a deal where you're able to get cashed out your investment on the down payment. But usually it's a few months. I try to structure everything such that just depends what the market's going to bear, but I want my capital to be paid back in no longer than 12 months after sale. Hey folks, my name is David Van Steenkist, and I've been a real estate investor for over 10 years. I've used lots of different tools, but none of them has done for my business what LandSpeed does. LandSpeed covers every step in the land investing process, from ordering mailing lists to marketing, sales, and closing the deal. What I really like, though, is it anticipates my needs. When I think, I wish I had a quick and easy way to evaluate return on investment on a potential property, look no further, LandSpeed does it. If I want to edit a deed after LandSpeed creates it, it can do that too. Most systems just stick you with a PDF that's uneditable, and you got to go back into the system and edit the fields and do whatever you need to do, and it's a real pain in the rear end. LandSpeed simplifies it. If I want to send 1 or 5 or even 40 neighbor letters at the click of a button, bam, LandSpeed does it. But even with all that inherent capability, you get access to LandSpeed Community, you get weekly mastermind calls, and you get the best mailing rates in the business with no volume commitment, which is freaking awesome. Because if I just want to pop one contract to somebody, I don't have to pay $1.50. I still pay the bargain basement rate. And on top of that, customer service is stellar, quick, and they just do a great job. I've been very, very happy, very pleased with it. And look, I've been running my business on LandSpeed for over 2 years. So take it from me. If you're serious about your land business, then check out LandSpeed. at facebook.com/landbizautomation. That's land, BIZ automation. And if you want $100 off, tell them you heard it from me, David Van Steenkist, on the Land.MBA podcast.
Right. Yeah, I find that a lot of people, and then I was, I kind of started this way myself. I had some money when I started, but I kind of looked at this as a business. So I took X amount of dollars and I put it as my seed capital in the business. And I think I started trying to do more cash deals, all cash deals at the beginning. And I think a lot of people do that for a couple of reasons. One, it's just a lot easier to do a cash transaction than it is to do a terms transaction. You don't have to manage it after the sale. I don't have to figure out how to do note management, all those issues that go with notes. Not to say it's terribly hard. It's absolutely worth it. But at the beginning, I had so many things I had to learn. I didn't want to deal with that right away. I just wanted to focus on cash deals. And then the cash deals would replenish capital and grow my capital so that I could just reinvest everything into the business and grow my deal flow. And then what I think a lot of people do is at that point is once they've grown their capital base, they're able to process more deals at a time. And they've mastered the business well enough to be able to start doing multiple deals a month, a week, or whatever. Then they start making the shift. But I'm not sure how often people are doing it sort of with intent. And I think there's real value in doing it with intent. So, you start by saying, okay, I'm going to do 100% cash deals until I've either generated this many recurring deals per month, or this much in my bank account, whatever the metric you're using is. And then you would say, all right, now I'm going to kind of go to 80% cash and I'm going to try to do 20% terms. I want to start mixing some terms in it and generating a little bit of recurring revenue. And then once that's going, you're still generating a lot of cash because you're doing 80% in cash. And then eventually maybe you migrate it to more of a 50-50. And then if you can get to the point where, you've got enough cash that, and enough cash flow, then you can say, and of course the golden thing that everybody's trying to get to is, I want to get to that $10,000 recurring income on the cash flow side, because that, and that will cover my nut. And then the cash stuff will just all be great. And then maybe switch over to like 80% terms and 20% cash or something like that.
Sure. I mean, you can tailor it to fit your needs. I know that I think ideally, the place that I want to be. So the nice thing about having the cash flow, though, especially if you started this as a side hustle, which I did, you build up enough cash flow to where you're still working your job. That's paying your bills. And if you're able to just put that cash flow away, and then every now and then there's a cash flip, and you save up that stockpile. And of course, the goal for most people is to get that cash flow to a point that they can quit their job. Ideally, I think it's, if you get it to twice the amount that you need to live on, then if you have a downturn and if you have a lot of defaults, I mean, it's going to be a cold day in hell that more than 50% of them default. And, you can at least pay your bills if you lose your job. That has happened to me. And it was sure a nice safety blanket to be able to fall back on my notes. And I at least had enough to live on, maybe not live the full lifestyle that I'm accustomed to, but I had that safety net. Could come back and have enough notes paying to pay the bills. So now I'm not putting it away, but at least, I'm not, in a position where I would need to live on unemployment or things like that. So I think that's a good place to be. And I think it's a good topic given what we're going through right now. There's, we're going to have record layoffs this month due to the coronavirus. And I think it just speaks to the ever more reality, the reality that we've got to have a side hustle, so if we're just working a job, there's nothing more risky than just depending on a single source of income from an employer. You got to have another income stream I don't care whether it's investing in land or it's some sort of e-commerce business. It's a must anymore.
How can you really feel confident in your ability to always be able to support your family, knowing, that you've got one income stream from a company? And anybody who's been in corporate America long enough, has to know that, I love my company. I love the people I work with. I love the people I work for. But in the end, guess what? Companies are about growing shareholder value. Those are the people who sit on the board of directors. You work there. Your job is to help build their value. And if the dividends are going down or if the money's not there, the cost cutting starts. There is no loyalty. There is none. The
You're
only
just a number
you have is, you've got to be loyal to yourself. This is a bit of an aside, but I worked at a big, massive telecom equipment company called Lucent Technologies. And they had just split off from AT&T. It was the largest IPO in history at the time that it went public. About 40,000 employees. And I was running marketing for our AT&T account, which was a $3.5 billion account, or as we like to say, the largest single business account in the history of business. And then right next to me, in the cube next to me, was my friend Eric, who maybe we'll try to get on the show sometime. He's great. And he was doing the strategy for the business with AT&T. And Eric, he was kind of a genius. He was a financial, stock investing genius. And most of his day was probably spent investing in stocks. But he always got his work done. And he would always tell me, he would say, Howard, people think that they go to a company and the way they get successful is to work hard for the company and get recognized for working hard for the company and doing good for the company. That's so not true. He said, I work for a company because I expect, my whole purpose being here is for what Lucent can do for me. It's like, what can I learn? What experiences can I get? How can I pad my resume? Of course, I have to do a good job. Otherwise I'll get fired. So I'm going to do what I have to do, of course. And there's a certain amount of pride and all that. But when it really comes down to it, my point is, what can this company do for me? But the truth of the matter is, there's no loyalty. You got to have that side hustle. You just got to have it.
Absolutely.
All right. So last question, and then we'll bring this to an end. So we talk about terms deals. So here it is. I hear a lot of people in the industry use the term passive income. Are terms deals passive income?
So give the devil his due. There's definitely a nice passive portion of it. I have a good amount of notes, and I can say that for the most part, and I manage it all through an online system that is a very good piece of software, and it runs very, very well. And, for the most part, I just look at my bank account and the deposits being made every month. But there is always a customer to deal with. They had an issue, they got behind, and you got to worry about figuring out how to collect on them, how to work with them. Right now I'm expecting more. I've had a couple of customers reach out to me from this coronavirus thing and say, hey, I'm going to have can I miss April's payment and have you throw the balance onto the back of the loan? And thinking, probably going to have more of those. I came up with a little compromise, and I fired back at him and I said, tell you what, we're all in this together. I depend on these note payments for my income, and I'm in it with you as well. I realize you may have lost a job or whatnot, but the way we're going to make it through this thing is we're going to make it through together. So can we compromise? And how about you make half payments for the next 90 days instead of, no payments for next month? Because, knowing the industry they were in food services. I said, I don't have good confidence that it won't change for May and possibly even June. So instead of getting behind full payments with penalties and everything, why don't we just cut your payment in half for 90 days? I'll throw the balance on the back of the loan, no penalties, no interest. We help each other. So that actually for 2 clients, I did that. And actually the second client, I cut it to 60 days though, but both of them were ecstatic about that.
Sure.
So hopefully it'll work out and they'll be able to resume paying soon. But that comes back, it's that's why I say it's sort of passive. Eventually you're going to have some people you got to deal with.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, had a bit of fun, and walked away with some actionable insights that you can apply to your business. Dave and I have got some great content and interviews planned, so don't forget to rate and review, and of course subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. If we mention any interesting links or tools, you'll find them in the show notes. To learn more about Land.MBA, visit our website at, wait for it, Land.MBA. See you next time on the Land.MBA podcast.